On today's episode, we will be talking to Bradley Freedom. Brad is a former active duty Marine turned entrepreneur who is motivated to uphold the truth. He awoke during his time in the Marines and felt called to seek the truth. He has helped build several tech startups with an unmatched work ethic, and he is committed to helping like-minded people in creating a new culture that will not bow down to tyranny. I'm very excited to bring into the podcast Bradley Freedom. Let's get into it. Welcome to the Fired Up Podcast, everybody, where we help you level up yourself and level up your business. And we have got an exciting guest today, what I'm going to call a good friend of mine now, Bradley Freedom, on the show. Just a quick background on how we met. We actually met a couple of months ago through a joint friend of ours, and Bodie and I started talking. And from that very first conversation, I was like, this guy's awesome. You know, you just naturally connect with people from the get-go, and there was definitely that connection there. But once I actually started to learn about Bradley's business and what they do and what they stand for, I was like, it's just perfect, right? It's right up my alley. I think a lot of people need to know about this. A lot of people can agree and resonate around the system and the matrix that we can be forced into. And there are options and avenues to get out of that and actually start to take control of your future, your direction, and things that should be under our control as well. So privileged that Bradley and I are now starting to work together on a few things in relation to their business. But I invited him onto the podcast to share his story with you guys and actually find out a little bit more about who he is and what he does. So Brad, thanks so much for coming onto the Fired Up Podcast, where we make it happen. I want to start off, if it's cool with you, just to kind of get a bit about you, a bit about your background, like if you can give us the summary of kind of where things started that led you up to the point of starting the Freedom People.
Yeah, honored to be here, man. Thank you, Ben. Absolutely. I consider us become pretty good friends at this point. We're spending a lot of time together and a lot of candid conversations, which is the foundation to a good relationship. You got to be honest and candid. And so, yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, 100%.
What got me here? So it was really the military. When I was young, I joined the military when I was like 17. Mom signed for me and all that good stuff. And when very early on in my stint in the military, I was rudely awakened to the fact that maybe everything that I believed was not true. The false pretenses at which I was in the military in the first place was soul crushing for me. It really it changed my life. I mean, completely in a very like kind of an immediate way, even though it took years to process. I think I'm still processing it, but we all were born into the system, right? Just like you said a minute ago, the Matrix. That's what this is. This is like, that is a documentary. And the further you go down these rabbit holes, the more you actually start to see the fine weave of the Matrix, right? You get really granular with it. And it's definitely a lifelong study. And so, so early on, it was around December 97. That's back when Saddam Hussein was kind of the leader. And I put that in air quotes, or the world, the leading bad guy of the world at the time.
Yeah.
And so we were getting ready to go to war. And then basically it was just, hey, the news was lying. And I couldn't believe it. And back then, this is like, the middle 90s. So the internet was there, but it was still really new. And so we didn't like go to CNN.com to get news. We didn't have news constantly bombarding us. There was no social networks, you know what I mean? Anything like that. And so back then the narrative was very tightly controlled, even more so than it is today. But like you got everything through the news channel or the newspaper, right? So it was either print or TV. And so for me to see that I was kind of there under false pretenses, it just exploded my whole world. And so I've been on a lifelong mission to figure out why and what the actual truth is, like what's going on. And then early 2000s, I set up a website called thelibertymovement.org, which I'm pretty sure it still points to our website. But I started that, and that was really an education platform, a lot like what the Freedom People is today. It was an education platform trying to help people to ingest new concepts and ideas that maybe same thing that I came to learn was maybe their experience too, right? And trying to get that information out. And it was very early on for any of this, and it wasn't well received for a very long time. And 2020 that changed all that. 2020, more and more people now are willing to listen to the craziness of Bradley Freedom. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how we ended up here, man. Yeah, in a nutshell, it was that's it. That's it. Yeah, the military woke me up.
So so when did the Freedom People start? So you said you had that previous website, and then I guess 2020 kind of, this relates to what you said before, like COVID, right? Like that was the thing that shocked the world in multiple ways, where the messaging, propaganda, the mandates, the control, all this stuff kind of
Yeah.
rattled society in a big way on both sides, and kind of also divided people quite a lot as well, because in some ways it was like, this is what you have to do, and you don't do it, we're going to take this away from you. If you don't do this, you can't work. If you don't do this, you can't travel. There was all these limitations, and you get a bunch of people who are on board with it because of what they're being fed, and then a bunch of people who are against it because they don't believe what they're getting. So I guess that kind of really pushed into the narrative as well of about what you're talking about around that messaging. So is the business launched? Did it help people kind of get on board and start to question things, not just around that, but I guess everything that the government's pushing down people's throats?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. It was that was enough. That's what gave me the spark to even start the business, right? So the Liberty Movement, I'd stopped maintaining that many moons ago, and it wasn't. It was just all dormant. And to be honest, I was just kind of out having a good time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I was playing music in a bar and like had a young girlfriend, and I was just enjoying life, partying a lot and all that good stuff. So I had a software business with a lot of good friends that we're just not as close anymore. That kind of goes back to what you were saying, that the you know still love everybody without a doubt. It's just it was and I get why it was what it was. It was just you felt like the crazy person in the room, right? Just trying to speak sense, telling everybody, hey, don't do this, don't go there, don't, you know what I mean? But that's really what lit the fire under my butt, so to speak, was to get that done, right? And it I now it just seems like it was kind of, but it was a passion, right? So I still had my other income, I still had stuff going on, and it was just, that's all it was a passion. I was like, we have to do something. And man, I never wanted to be on podcasts. I never wanted to be out in the open at all. At
mm,
all. I still not exactly what I want to do, but I find it to be necessary, right? And that's why that's why we started the Freedom People podcast, was just because I was like, we got to balance the airwaves somehow. The information, it was just so bad, and like we were seeing the mass censorship. We were being
mm,
censored. We had, you know, Australian doctors on and stuff like that, and we were getting censored in YouTube. YouTube wouldn't let us put anything out, right? That was contradictory to what the pharmaceutical companies was saying.
yeah,
And so then that was just like, well, we got to push extra hard then, and that's really what was the main catalyst was 2020, and when they started the lockdown, and really not even the lockdowns, it was the masking and the requiring people to wear masks to go into a restaurant, because that's a medical intervention. And if you just, if you know a little bit about how your body works, your lungs are the second or the first or second biggest excrement on the body, which means the skin and the lungs, and that means that's where you actually detox bad things, right? So if you're sick, the worst thing you can do is cover that and keep inhaling it. It
mm,
just doesn't make any sense. And then with the whole thing with Fauci saying, no, you don't need a stupid mask, it's stupid, might make you feel a little better. And then the next thing you know, he shouldn't have said that, and his handlers came in, and then it was full tilt the other way. Oh, wear 3 masks. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's so I think a lot of people saw the hypocrisy, and it
yeah.
was just so extra that a lot of people, yeah, it absolutely fueled everything for this. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Freedom People business then. I mean, the mission for you guys is to empower people to reclaim their freedom in health, wealth, education, law, and spirituality. And that's what you guys call the five pillars of your organization. That's how you operate. So
Yes.
let's talk about that a bit more. Like what does that actually mean? And let's dig into each of those pillars.
Yeah, sure. Awesome. I like talking about this. So what it is the ethos behind the five pillars is that over time, generations, this didn't happen overnight, but over generations and generations, we've given away our power. Uh, we've outsourced our power. Let's just say that we've outsourced it in all these five areas, and that's the structure that we've given to it. Is health, wealth, education, spirituality, and law. So, for example, let's take spirituality. Instead of us relying on ourselves and creating a connection with Source, God, Creator, whatever you want to say, we've outsourced that to the Catholic priest, right, or the Jewish rabbi, or whatever your religion is. That's how we've outsourced that, and that is very disempowering, right? And we take that across all of them. Take healthcare, for example, right? You go to a doctor, and this guy, he's practicing medicine, by the way, and he's practicing, but you're going to go to him and say, it's your responsibility for my health. And I don't think that that's fair to the doctor, and it's definitely not fair to you. But
Yeah.
once we can take that power back, right, and it goes down the line, law, wealth, we don't learn any of that stuff ourselves. We've become so dependent on people outside of ourselves and outsourcing everything that we're left powerless. But the beautiful thing about it is, regardless of where you're at in any of those areas in your life, the moment you decide to take that power back, you say, no, it's my responsibility. That is immediate empowerment, because now you have the power to change it. Whereas the inverse of that, what we were saying before, is that, well, it's somebody else's responsibility. So where do you want to be? And that's really the ethos, and everything behind the five pillars of freedom is to help instill a more free mindset to the average ladies and gentlemen out there. That's really what we're going for. That's what it's about. And even if it's just to get people to think about what I just said,
Mm,
right? Even if you never take action on that, just to think a different thought, just to believe that you can live a life where you don't have to ask permission.
yeah. And I think, well, yeah, first of all, probing so people actually do start to think it. I'm very much on that side of the fence, right? Like if I want to be able to find every which way that I have full responsibility and full control. And I'm sure
Mm,
once these conversations start happening, people will think about that and go, well, hey, yeah, like that makes sense to me as well. But where they will probably come to is, but how?
mm,
Like, is it even possible? Like, I mean, my money, like if I don't have it in the top drawer, it's got to be in the bank, right? Like they're my options. It's cash in the bedroom or it's in the bank. So how do I get out of that system? And as it relates to all the other structure, all of the taxing information, all of that type of thing, people wouldn't know where to start. And that's the
mm.
problem you guys solve, right? That's how you can help people actually get out of that. Great. So what as me I joined the freedom people, or what, how can you guys help me, or what things can you put in place that actually is going to give me some of that control? How does it work? Because like I said, I don't think a lot of people would even think it was possible.
Right. Yeah. So first of all, it's really just the idea and the concept of, yes, I'm going to do this, and then something amazing happens once you decide to do something. Is that we're very resourceful entities as beings. We can be resourceful when we want to be. You'll
Mm.
find ways, right? The the freedom people, as far as what we can offer, well, for us, again, it's the ideas, and I want to help people even think about maybe taking some of that and taking that responsibility and getting into crypto, right? And that's a scary space for a lot of people. And why? Because you're responsible. Like, you are full on. There's no insurance, some bank you can just walk up and say, give me my money and all that stuff, which is great. But also that leaves the avenue for people to take advantage, and they have, and that banks, that's what they do. And so, as much as we can, we want to get away from that. Like, go to a more decentralized, self-sustaining, but that's where, again, we keep coming back to, if you're not in that mindset, then what you're going to end up doing is then coming over to the freedom people and then putting us on the pedestal to be your, your savior. And you're going to come to us for all the information you need, which is not where we want to be, right? We want people to be self-sufficient. And we're always here, but that's the part of the community that is so beautiful, is that we're self-teaching community, right? And some people come through and we can help set up trust, at least here in the US. If you're based in the US, we can help a lot in that right now. We've got a lot of cool stuff happening around the world, but right now that's mainly what we can help on the market here. But the beauty of Bitcoin, it's everywhere, man, right? I mean, and it's the same price. So whether I'm here or Australia or Thailand or anywhere else, the value of that Bitcoin is the same. How
Yeah.
cool is that?
Yeah.
Right. And then I can
Yeah.
send it to you without having the coin changers, the banks, the third party intermediaries sucking off of it. Because that's what they do. And that's the only thing. And again, it's convenient. It is all laid out for us when we're born. It's not easy to do these things, but I truly do believe that that's where we're heading more and more, at least myself and a lot of people like yourself and a lot of people who are like, no, I want control of my life. I'll happily take that on now and learn new things. It'll be uncomfortable, right? It's because growth is uncomfortable. So we're going to just have to be uncomfortable for a little while and just learn new things and try extra hard to build new things. And they're coming together, Ben. I'm telling you,
Yeah.
man, like,
Yeah.
it's inspiring for all around the world too. It's really cool.
I put this in one of my earlier episodes on the podcast because I mean, I got started in crypto in 2014, and it was more kind of a hobby thing there, right? Like, I was playing around with stocks, and this was this exciting new space. I started putting a bit of money into Bitcoin and Ethereum, and kept on doing that. And as I learned more, I started looking at other projects and bits and pieces. The thing that really shocked me about 12 months ago is tried to move some money from my bank account into an exchange, and it gets declined. And I get an automatic email from the bank saying, due to increasing fraud and scams, we are now limiting the amount of money that you can put into an exchange to X amount of dollars per month from all of your accounts. However, we will still allow money to come from the exchange back into the bank account.
Of course.
Of course, we'll take the money, but we won't let you move it. And I was like, I went nuts at them. And this is a really good example of kind of being trapped in that system, where I'm calling the bank saying, this is my money. Now I can spend it on 100,000 liters of golden syrup if I want. You can't tell me what I can do and not do with my money. And then put on top of that the reason for this is to reduce fraud and schemes. If I am authenticating the transaction for anything, that's my choice and it's my risk. That went on deaf ears. I went down to the local branch. They said they can't help. It's the process, the policy. They pushed it up to senior management. They said no. And what ultimately happened was they said quite aggressively at the end of this is our policy and that's what we do. And basically what they were saying to me is, it's not my money anymore. As soon as my money is in the bank, it's now their money. They can control what they charge me to transact with it, where it goes, what I do with it, and everything else. So my mission became, how do I get it all out of there, and get out of this rat race? And I was talking to my wife about it, because the funny thing was, the only way I could get out of this to be able to move more money into the exchange was to open several bank accounts with 7 different organizations, because their limit was capped at X amount a month. So as I go and try and open up these bank accounts, I go to a new bank. There's no car parking out the front, and that's intentional, right? Once I park 3 blocks away, I go in, there's one person at the teller, and there's about 20 people in the queue. Also intentional, right? Because now you're just making it difficult and hard, and people are on lunch breaks and stuff. They don't have time to do an hour at the bank. Once I got through all of that crap and filled out the paperwork, they said, great, it's all done. We'll have a customer service rep contact you this afternoon. That phone call never happened. Then I'm chasing them up. I'm on hold for 2 hours. Then they're like, we don't have the form. Like, the obstacles they put in the way which they know. They've got the best business analysts in the world. They know that if they make
Yeah.
people wait on hold for 20 minutes, then 90% of them will hang up. So let's make them hold for 20 minutes so they don't actually get to talk to us. I pushed this so hard through everything. It actually got picked up by a news outfit, Sky News Australia, which is one of the
What?
better. Yeah, they're one of
Yeah.
the better
I know
ones.
Sky.
Yeah, so they're one of the better ones who don't kind of, they're happy to kind of bring these stories to the surface. It got there. That was great. It made me feel good. And of course, nothing has changed and nothing will change.
No.
And we know what's going on economically is the fact that the banks do not have our money. And that's why if I went down there and said, give it all to me, they can't because they
No.
don't have it. They've lent it out to other people. And you can see it happening in other countries across the world where the bank runs and the banking collapse. And we're going to continue to see that happen. So for me,
Yeah.
that was like crypto no longer became a sideline hobby and a way to make investments. This was the security. This is how I was going to protect myself, my children of the future.
Mm.
And
Amen, dude.
massive eye opener. And look, I know with your structure, everything around Freedom People is obviously set up for the US. I would love to, continue the conversation or dig into so we could feed it into our audience as well. Like, how do we do the same thing over here in Australia?
Yeah.
How do we get these trusts set up? How do we get out of those other parts of the system? So maybe we could dig into that in the future and kind of share some of that information through as well.
Absolutely. Heck yeah. Yep. We're
Cool.
very interested. We want to help as many people as we can. That's something. Yeah. Like land patents. I know that there's within our community, there's some people working on land patents down there in Australia. What's a land patent? A land patent is where you actually own the land. So it works pretty much everywhere in the world the same. Whereas if you pay tax on something, so for example, if you buy your house and it's registered at the county, here in the US anyway, it's the county. Maybe we can kind of figure out whatever the words are there in Australia, but whoever you go and you register through, right? So if you go down and your property's registered, now you pay your property tax. You don't own that land. They do. And they're actually giving you a certificate of title, allowing you to live on that land while you pay them, and they're servicing it for you.
Mm.
Right. That's actually what's going on. So you don't own the land, but with a land patent, we can help change that. And so I know that we got that stuff coming down to Australia really quick. So yeah, anytime, man. I would love, yes, anything more. I talk about this and help see how many people and how many different countries we can help.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's a worldwide thing as well, but here in Australia, particularly in the last 2 years, the super inflation that we've seen, the cost of things has gone through the roof. People are struggling, because their dollar is not going as far as it used to. Wages aren't keeping up, and we just seem to be getting hit on in every single part of, you know, the world on everything that we buy and pay for is going through the roof. As it relates to tax, I was looking at this the other day. Like, you earn the money, you pay tax. You buy something, you pay tax. If you invest that money so that you can actually start to get ahead, they're going to tax you on that as well. And the whole thing is just take. That, people are really starting to struggle with this. And once you start to struggle, that changes, your mindset. And now people get frustrated and start to do desperate things. We're seeing crime go up. We're seeing, divorce go up. We're seeing all sorts of things roll on because of what's happening to people who are relying on the government to help them, to look after them, who are relying on the police to protect them, who are relying on their employer to ensure that they're paid the right amount for the right thing. And none of it's happening. So,
Yeah.
not to freak people out, but I'm sure that they can see and feel anyway. But I'm like, I think it's going to get worse. Like, now is the time to actually start to look at that stuff and take some action to protect yourself. And I mean, That's Fired Up was really all kind of built around that, because it's like, you know, one of the first ways to freedom is to have your own business, have control of your own
Amen.
business, your own income, your own destiny. Like, as soon as you're working for someone, they control your time, they control your income, they control everything else. So, it nicely connects there.
Yep.
Um,
Yep. Yep.
There's another business that you have, which I think is worthwhile talking about it, which is Chain Recorder.
Yeah.
Relatively new, kind of, about to kind of really get into the market and side of things with that. But can you tell us what that business is, and how that kind of connects to everything that you're doing as well?
Yeah, heck yeah. Excuse me. So it's digital asset recording on the Bitcoin blockchain. So essentially, kind of like you can think of it like notary or we chain recorder can offer proof of existence and proof of authenticity for anything digital, any file at all. So whether it's a video file, a document, um, anything, we can take that and record that to the Bitcoin blockchain, and then at any given time in the future, you can go and prove if that is authentic and or existed at that time. For a lot of people, it's new technology, but you think of it kind of like the old school way of if you had an idea, you would write it down on a piece of paper and then you'd mail it to yourself in a sealed envelope, right? Self-addressed sealed envelope. And
Yep.
then at any given time in the future, if somebody's using your idea, then you could go in and say, I actually had this idea first and I can prove it. So essentially, that's kind of what Chain Recorder does. Now, the importance of this is that we can start laying the foundation for and framework for um, a more decentralized and trustless world. And it's kind of funny, one of those words where you say trustless, but what that actually does is means that we can have more trust. And why? Because now we don't have to trust that these some sort of central controlled entity or organization or individual is actually telling the truth. It's all just there and verifiable by anyone. So that alone, the reason that we really implemented this technology is because we want to help free the people. Right now, all these government service corporations, because that's a lot of what, well, all your government here in the United States, governmente, right? Govern the
Yeah.
mind, mind control, governmente. And they are actual government service corporations. They're for-profit corporations. For example, you have the Department of Revenue, right? And so if you have an entity that has a Department of Revenue and it's their job to collect revenue, how can that actually be for the people? Oh, because it's being spent on the people. No, it's not. They're taking from the people. So you can't really, take from somebody and say you're taking from them to give to them. It's so backwards that but we've just been indoctrinated over generations for this to happen, right? So Chain Recorder solves that. We're taking that back and we're creating the people's record. And the people's record is a place that is a publicly searchable record of Bitcoin blockchain recorded assets so that we can prove that this was. And that's going to be the ultimate place in public record. So that's what the technology is behind Chain Recorder and how it kind of fits with the Freedom People. It's a service that the Freedom People needed, right? It's a service that we think a lot of different people are going to need really fast, especially when you get into the world of deep fakes, right? AI. I mean, it's the next couple of years is going to get pretty interesting with that kind
Mm.
of thing. So that's one of the main benefits of what Chain Recorder does.
And if you fast forward 2 years, 3 years, like where do you see this? I guess holistically, like as a society and everything else, but also where do you see Freedom People and Chain Recorder 2 or 3 years down the track? Like what's the dream there in terms of the impacts that you're having and the impact that's going to have to people and your customers?
Yeah. So, I mean, the dream is, the real dream, I mean, 3 to 5 years, I'd like to think that this would come that in that time frame. But, when we started all of this, it was, in the belief that this wouldn't really make any sort of dent or change for generations, right? Something much, much bigger than yourself, something that's much bigger than your lifespan. Because it's got to start somewhere, right? And in the very beginning, I had lots of people, of course, calling me crazy and say, "Why aren't you doing this? It's way too, it's why it's that's so far out there." But people think short term, I think a lot of the times, and we're thinking about, well, how is this going to benefit me in my life immediately? And I think the mindset needs to be more, well, how is this going to benefit our children's children in the long run? And that's kind of how this started. And if in 3 to 5 years, if we could have just some sort of this framework implemented, like again, the decentralization. So think about decentralized government, right? A way to run all things on the blockchain where it's through smart contract. So again, there's no way to, excuse me, there's no way to uh, manipulate anybody or say that, hey, I've got your family hostage. If you don't do this for me, then I'm, what I mean, going to kill your
Mm,
family. That
mm,
that that if we can take all of that away, what kind of society would we be in if there was no incentive to be malicious or mean or I I I think that could be the groundwork for a really beautiful society, more free and harmonious society. Anyway,
yeah.
that's where I'd like to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And the education part, like there's a lot going on in there. And I think to your point earlier, that's where you see a lot of this focus needs to be, because we need to start to educate people on thinking about it and the how and the why and the considerations, not just for today, but as you mentioned, the future generations as well. And, I think that's awesome that you guys are doing that, and that's really important. And I guess just we're starting to see quite a bit of momentum there for you guys as step one, get educated. Step two, find the solution. Step three, take action and get a result, and then actually start to build through from that. Yeah,
Right. Right. It's all about solutions. We can't just sit and 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 complain about the situation anymore. We've got to do something. And we
yeah,
are. And that's the beautiful thing, is that we are. And it's working. And there's nothing more powerful than an ideas that time has come. And I think that's where I see where we're at, is at this precipice of this point of no return. It's like we're all in. We're the freedom people. We're all in to make a more free for everyone, right? It has, and that's it's for everybody. This isn't for it. The only thing that it really goes in the face of is the slave masters and the people who want to control and can only profit off the back of others.
yeah,
That's the only one. That's where it doesn't benefit. And at the same time, as I think that those structures are limited, and we're seeing that again back through cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, um, sound money, people's money, where I can send you $10 million right now if I wanted, and nobody'd know, and it doesn't have to be. I mean, that's beautiful. You
yeah,
know what I mean? That's
yeah,
beautiful. Yeah, it's
yeah.
really, really nice. And that's why
Think,
we want the mass adoption, man. We want the mass adoption, as many people as we can get using this, and businesses. And that's the freedom people. We try to give as many business services as we can. We have people pay. People pay is a way for you to start accepting Bitcoin right now, and we don't charge anything. And it's just a free service to help the adoption of the technology. We need mass adoption and alternatives, because that's what you were saying. Like, what if most people don't know, right? And having these conversations,
mm,
whoa, there's actually a solution, or one is there's a problem, and then, like you said, is there a solution? And that's where we really want to solidify ourselves as the solution based place to go. Even if we don't have them, let's talk about them. Let's figure out
mm,
ways to make them.
mm. What do you say to people? Because I mean, you know, I'm talking about crypto and have been doing for years, and I've got some people who are on board and some people who aren't on board. And a lot of the big objection is the volatility, right? So they go, okay, cool, Ben, but if I take my $100 and I go and put that in Bitcoin, tomorrow that $100 could be now worth $80. So I don't want
True.
to take that risk. I don't want my money going up and down. And you can imagine my response to this with the response of their dollar. But
Yeah,
in your word,
exactly.
yeah, in your words, what's your response to that? I say to you, Bodie, I get it. Sounds all good, but I'm not taking the risk with cryptocurrency. I could lose that $100. I've heard FTX that went down. I've heard all these horror stories.
Mm.
I'm not going to take that risk, because if I've got that $100 in my hand, at least I've got the $100 in my hand. What would your response to that person be?
Yeah, you kind of said it there. That's why I'm chuckling. Is like, well, we just talked about it. Like the Federal Reserve notes, or the fiat currency, that's been devalued. Do you know that they printed 40% of all the dollars that were ever printed in existence? The US dollars ever printed was like in the past, like few months or 4 years. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. They're the
Yeah.
if you put $1 into Bitcoin, uh, 15 years ago, it's worth a lot more than $1 now. Okay. At any 5 year, given any 5 year period, you just leave your money. And that's why what you were saying earlier too, and I believe is, Bitcoin, it's not about like so much a currency. It's more of it's a store of value. That's how we can, it's a place that we can store our wealth and keep it. If you keep your money in the bank in a fiat currency, well, again, that's why they're saying the cost of living is going up. But it's, what does that
Yeah.
mean? What does that? So
Yeah.
you're telling me just today it costs more to hack down this tree than it did yesterday, or it costs more for the surgeon to slice into somebody? No, it didn't. What they're
Mm,
doing is manipulating your currency. Is
mm.
Bitcoin going up, or is the dollar going down? Right, and that's the question. What is the purchasing power? That's what I believe. I believe it's the latter. I think it's the purchasing power, and they're manipulating it. Yeah. So that's my is just look at the value of the dollar over the past 50 years, and look at the value of Bitcoin over the past 15, and then just put the numbers together
Yeah.
side by side.
Yeah. 100%. Then the other thing that they hear is like, okay, well, that I'm keen to do it, but it's too hard, right? And I think, look, it's
Mm,
becoming way easier. I mean, it's not hard to get into an exchange now, open an account, and buy a portion of Bitcoin. Easy to do.
yep.
Um, but then I think the other part of that is, once you've done that within the exchange, like if it's on the exchange, it's almost like it's in the bank, right? That's actually not your money because it's sitting on the exchange. You need to take custody and control of it
Right.
yourself, so it's not there to remove that risk. Now, I went through that process a couple of years ago, and it wasn't easy. It was, even just from a technical aspect, it wasn't something that plug play done. It was like quite complicated to do. But do you think that that's going to get easier?
Oh
And
yeah.
and yeah,
I think it already has, don't you? I mean, like you're saying, I mean, compared, I guess it depends on when you go back, but I mean,
mm,
wallets now with like Coinbase, all these different exchanges and the wallets and how easy they are to use, and
mm,
even your cold storage ledgers and stuff like that. I mean, they're like, I got this new one. It's this card. I don't know. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, yeah, and more. And that's what we're trying to do, right? And that's where people pay. And so yeah, if you go to peoplepayapp.com, you can just go read about it. But what that is the ability for you to just start accepting Bitcoin immediately for your business. Handles all the invoicing, handles all of that stuff, right? So those type of solutions, they're coming more and more every day, and it's starting to ramp up, especially on the Bitcoin blockchain. Development on the Bitcoin blockchain over the past year and a half, 2 years has just grown exponentially, and it's continuing to grow. So absolutely, technology, as we know, makes things cheaper, and more people, right? Because that is the scary part. That is the scary part is self custody. You're
yeah,
taking, because there is that bridge there where you can trust that exchange or that third party intermediary, that they're going to stay in business, right? The whole FTX thing, all that, right? So it's a level of trust there, but you can take that immediately. That's what I do. Is I move everything off exchanges and put it in my cold storage.
yeah,
um
yeah.
my Trezor, I got a Trezor as well. I like my Trezor. It's an older one, but I like it. So yeah, definitely way easier, way easier. I mean, your experience, right, over the past 5 years of crypto, it's now it's yeah, it's very easy to do. It's very easy to do, unless, of course, the banks step in and say you can't move your money. Well, then, you know what I mean? Uh,
Well,
I-
yeah. I mean, you've got to be persistent to find the solution, which I did. And I mean, they're playing catch up, right? So three years ago, I was able to move whatever amount it was, and then
yeah,
as more and more adoption came in, the bank's like, "Holy shit, people are moving their money out of their bank accounts! Like, we've got to stop this. So
yeah,
let's put some policies in and some bullshit rules around fraud and protection that stops it." And they literally put a limit on it, which was a stupid limit. Like it was, and it was across all accounts. Then, I'm getting new emails coming through now because I had to go and open up all of these bank accounts to get around that limit protection thing. But now there's new emails coming in from the banks and notifications going, "We will not allow any amount to go out into exchanges. But we will accept money coming from exchanges. So they've stopped it. And it's like, for
What?
someone who's just getting into the game now, it is going to be so difficult for them to get their money into an exchange to do the thing. It's going to be very, very difficult. How's
Dude,
this? The other thing.
this is totalitarianism. This is
Yeah.
tyranny. This is complete insanity. Think about this. They're telling you what you can spend your money on.
Oh,
That's your
yeah.
nanny. That's your mommy and daddy controlling your bank account.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But but
That stuff
only
gets under my
certain
skin.
things, right? Like you can literally go to the casino
Sure.
and take as much money out of the casino as you want and lose the lot. Bank won't get involved. There'll be no notifications, no slap on the hand. You can't do that.
No.
But when you want to go and put it over here, they're like, nah, because it's almost like they know once it goes there, it's not coming back.
Right.
And it's just numbers on the screen. I guess there's no big deal about that, but they can see what's coming and the problem that they're going to have, which is, if everyone turned up here tomorrow and said, "Hey, I'd like to get all of my money out of my bank account and close the bank account,"
True.
that's when all of a sudden there's going to be a fire alarm go off in the branch. They're going to shut the doors, kick everybody out. We can't. There's cash limits now, so. And there have been for a while, but they're getting more and more. So I can't even go to a money machine and get as much money as I want out. So then you
Yeah.
go to the physical branch and say, I'd like to get some money out. And it's all this, what's that for? What do
Yeah.
you buy? And I'm like, go buy what I want. They're like, why are you asking me this question? They're like, it's just a process. I'm like, well, stick your process up your ass. Like, if I want to go and buy a bunch of feathers to play around in, that's my choice. But then they get their manager and all of this, and there's all these money limits and everything else. So it's getting a lot worse. There's some groups starting up now. There was one about a month ago where they're, Facebook groups and stuff, and they're encouraging everybody to go to the ATM and take as much money as they can out, just to kind of break the system a little bit, because they're trying to get rid of the cash, and I don't really care about cash anymore. But for the people that do, who are trying to avoid some of this, there's limits all across the place, and all these
Yep.
policies and problems coming in. Yeah,
Awesome.
it's madness.
It's we're in it. We're in it, man. Like, and that's everything you're saying right there. That's why it's time. That's why it's time. That's why it's cryptocurrency. I don't care. You know what I mean? Use Ethereum, whatever, but just, yeah, those they've got to go, right? They need those original depositors, and that's what it is. They just need you, because they can't exist without a living, breathing soul depositing money to them, right?
Yeah,
They need us. They need us more than we need them.
yeah,
And it's starting to really show. And now that, again, since 2008, we've had a system in place. We've had Bitcoin in place. It's there.
mm,
And that's why I say, it's an idea that's time has come. And I think that, I know this is something that either we're going to have to do, or we all become indentured servants forever and have to live in servitude. And so it's either really one or the other. And it sounds hyperbolic, but I promise you it's not.
yeah,
It's not hyperbolic at all. Yeah.
yeah.
Unfortunately.
Do you like, in terms of the cryptocurrencies? Just personal opinions here, but with it, someone is Bitcoin the only way? Is it the only one? Is
No.
there a top 5 you would recommend to people if they were about to move into this area?
Well, it depends. Like, what is your what's your goal? You know what I mean? Like I do. There's projects. I really like Solana, Monero's a great coin. You know what I mean? There's tons of good ones out there. I'm kind of a Bitcoin maximist, and in the that I like it for the wealth store. I don't think you can beat Bitcoin. All the other coins are always kind of riding on the coattails of that. So if you're doing that at the same time, Solana, like I said, your EVM tokens or your ERC20 tokens, those are, use them for whatever. Anything's better than fiat. How about that? Anything is better than your fiat dollar currency, whatever you may be in. And if it's a fiat, anything, I don't put it anywhere. But just it's the anonymity and the freedom of being able to send payments without them asking you, are you buying feathers? Like what I don't care. What am I here? Why are you asking me? That's such a
Yeah, yeah,
weird thing.
yeah,
Right. And it
yeah.
just gets under my skin. Yeah. Same thing. Like, yeah, I played all kinds of experiments. You go, try and take out like 20 grand, right? And they don't have it. And that's the thing, is that they even admit it, that they don't print money anymore. They create new numbers on a screen. But
Mm,
here in the US, for example, they can't just do that. So what they do here in the US is they go and they purchase treasury bonds. So US treasury bonds, the Federal Reserve Bank has to go to the US Treasury and buy these bonds. Well, those bonds, they're backed by something. They have to be. The treasury bonds are backed by something. And what are they backed by? They're backed by the taxation of the people, right? And so right there, that's how you know you're the surety. We are the actual power. We are
yeah.
everything that exists. It doesn't exist without us, the living, right? God created man, man created society, and society created governments. They didn't create us, but they
Mm,
believe that they created us. And that's where we
mm,
got to, that's back to taking our power back and just stepping in and saying, no, no more. Sorry. As soon as like a big lot of us say that worldwide, it completely goes away. And again, we have the structures in place. I can conduct business with you right now, Ben. You and I, through Bitcoin or Ethereum or Solana, Monero, I love all those, whatever. Boom, instantaneous. You and I can continue business without any of that. Like
yeah,
immediate, like immediate.
yeah,
Now it's there. And that's what's
yeah,
so inspiring and exciting about all this, right? Is that it's not like we're sitting here hopeless, like, oh shit, we're in a lot of trouble, man. But we got nothing to, no, it's there. It's already there. So that's the
yeah.
inspiring part. Yeah.
It's done.
Sure. Yeah. Just head to thefreedompeople.org and look us up. We got some free courses. We've got lots of free education. Join our private membership and yeah, join the conversations. We got a bunch of different groups and all that good stuff. So yeah, thefreedompeople.org.
The,
My honor, Ben. Thank you, man. Cheers. See you
talk,
soon.